Man uncovers gold and hides it for years until the truth is revealed. Unfortunately, the days of the gold rush are long gone. You can't travel to California with a pickaxe, a sifter, and a territorial instinct and get an express guarantee of making a fortune off the gold deposits hidden in ore. At least, not unless you're Dave Hole. He was a regular guy living in Australia, but one special hobby of his set him apart. And one day when he was out combing his hometown of Maryborough for gold, he happened upon something far more rare. No one, least of all him, could believe he found it, or what it was worth. Dave Hole was no stranger to treasure hunting. In fact, walking through Maryborough Regional Park while searching for something special hidden beneath the soil was one of his favorite pastimes. In 2015, while going through his normal route, he happened on something that seemed incredibly promising. A large reddish rock that was surprisingly heavy. He didn't want to get his hopes up, but he had his suspicions to what it was. He took what he thought was gold ore home and got to work trying to break it apart. He tried everything he could, but the thing was incredibly sturdy. He even hit it with a sledgehammer, which failed to scratch the surface. Stumped, Hole stored the rock in his home for the next 4 years, planning on one day getting all the gold out of it. It wasn't until 2019 that he stuck it in his backpack and marched over to the Melbourne Museum. There, Hole met geologist Dermot Henry, the person responsible for testing samples that people bring into the museum. In particular, a large part of his role involves examining possible meteorites to test their authenticity. Of course, testing the specimens was really more of a formality than anything. Even after working at the museum for 37 years and testing thousands of samples, only 2 of those have ever turned out to be real meteorites. That's why when Mr. Hole walked into his office and hoisted a large red rock out of his backpack, the scientist did a double take. This particular artifact was very promising, Henry thought. It had this sculpted, dimpled look to it, he remarked. That's formed when they come through the atmosphere. They're melting on the outside, and the atmosphere sculpts them. Could it really be true that this was the genuine thing? Upon lifting the rock, Henry was even more encouraged. It was way heavier than it should have been for a normal rock found on Earth, especially considering its size. Generally speaking, meteorites tend to be heavier due to dense deposits of iron and nickel found inside them. All signs were pointing to Mr. Hole's discovery being something very special indeed. Lo and behold, when the tests were completed, both Henry and Hole were left in absolute amazement. The red rock was a meteorite. And even more fascinating, it was an impressive 4.6 billion years old, which carries serious implications. The geologist cut out a cross-section of the meteorite with a very powerful tool known as a diamond saw. What they beheld was more awe-inspiring than almost anything the scientist had seen in his years of working. The cross-section revealed beautiful silver droplets inside. But not just any droplets. These had been formed billions of years ago, crystallized by the cloud of incredibly hot gas that formed our solar system as we know it. The name of the meteorite, Mr. Hole would soon learn, was H5 chondrite, and it had a highly interesting origin story, much more intriguing than any gold deposit could have ever hoped to. See, 4.6 billion years ago, the universe was much different than it is today. It was comprised of tons of these same rocks, chondrite, orbiting around the sun. Looking at this meteorite was almost like looking at the origins of life itself. Eventually, these chunks of chondrite would cluster together, forming Earth as well as the other rocky planets. However, some of the fascinating material was still left over. The majority of the remaining chondrite now sits in the belt between Jupiter and Mars. Every now and then, 2 pieces of it will collide, leading to a one-of-a-kind event. When this celestial collision happens, the impact sends shards of otherworldly rock hurtling towards Earth. This is how the piece of chondrite that was eventually discovered by Mr. Hole began its journey. Due to the lack of weathering, it's likely that this specific piece had only been on Earth for less than 200 years. This makes it likely that someone had actually seen it fall. Sure enough, a look at local newspaper records from the time almost confirmed this theory, as residents of Maryborough in the 1950s reported having seen balls of fire shooting across the night sky. Meteoroids seldom make it all the way to Earth's surface, but when they do, the results can be catastrophic. Past collisions blew out massive craters and, according to theory, killed the dinosaurs. Still, a 1954 meteorite did something even more bizarre. Most of the United States was reeling from that year's landmark Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka case, which outlawed segregation in schools. On the other hand, the small town of Sylacauga, Alabama, had another matter on their minds. One autumn afternoon, Sylacauga residents spotted a bright reddish light like a Roman candle trailing smoke in the sky. Some fled, thinking the Soviets were springing a new Cold War weapon. Not even the most paranoid, however, suspected what it actually was. Surviving its trip through the atmosphere, the extraterrestrial rock made an unexpected visit to an Alabama farmhouse. Rather than sneak in like a burglar, the meteorite announced its presence with a crash. Check out these other videos from Let Me Know. If you haven't made the move to subscribe to our channel, all you need to do is click on that red subscribe button. Thank you for watching.